I wrote a little sort of essay in response to the situation because after seeing the video, I did some research which made me pretty angry and made me feel like I needed to respond by speaking out in some way, even though probably only a few people will watch this. I wrote the essay in handwriting, which I'll be reading off of, so I'll probably stumble a little bit, so bear with me. After the event, Andrew Meyer was kept overnight in the county jail because the officers stubbornly refused to reflect on their actions as possibly out of line and quite possibly instigating Andrew's escalating excitement in resisting arrest and inciting a riot. But of course they're police officers. But they didn't just keep him overnight. They sought to charge him with the felony of violently resisting arrest and the misdemeanors of disturbing the peace and interfering with school administrative functions. In order to avoid being prosecuted, Andrew had to commit to 18 months of probation. All this for doing what? Yes, he shouldn't have barged to the front of the line. Yes, he was a little obnoxious. Though this may show an attitude problem, it also shows the passion that was motivating his questions. A family member was quoted saying that Andrew is a very dedicated student and takes issues he cares about very seriously, and thus can become very passionate when discussing them. Andrew had never had any run-ins with the law before. Yet he was treated like a seasoned criminal by the university police when he was only at fault for his attitude and passion. Later, he was even mischaracterized by the president of the Florida State Fraternal Order of Police as acting the way he did solely to bring attention to himself. If this president person watched any part of Andrew's questions to Senator Kerry, he would have seen the passionate student that Andrew's family and friends have described. Yes, Andrew gave his camera to his friend to film his questions, but was this because he only wanted to have a moment in the spotlight while asking actually important questions he didn't care about? Or could it be that he actually gave a crap about what he was saying? The two possibilities are mutually exclusive. It was reported that prior to the event, Andrew said he wanted to make a splash at this event. But given a common-sense view of all the relevant information, he must have meant that he expected an important, if charged, interaction with John Kerry. Not only was Andrew mischaracterized as not caring about his questions, but even worse than this, he was accused of predicting the response from the officers and staging the whole thing. Even worse, this accusation was recorded in the report summarizing the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's investigation of the matter. The reasons cited to support the idea that all this was staged are all dismissible and ridiculous. If the investigators weren't all just complete morons, this was merely a bogus accusation meant to distract stupid people from considering the officers' actions as possibly unreasonable, whether or not Meyer planned the thing. Let's face it, there are a lot of stupid people in this country. As Miss Teen South Carolina knows by now, a fifth of U.S. Americans can't even locate their own country on a world map. Stupidity is one of the reasons why we let authority get away with so much in this country. But it's absolutely laughable to claim that Andrew staged this. First of all, why would he ask such important and thoughtful questions knowing that he wouldn't get a response, and instead possibly be injured and treated like a criminal? And the suggestion that Andrew was calm while walking down a set of stairs with police, really because the cameras weren't on him at the moment, is transparently ridiculous. He was going down a set of stairs, and struggling would have been, of course, dangerous. It was also reported that he became more respectful of the officers on his ride to the jail, possibly because there weren't cameras on him then either. Well, just maybe, this wasn't because there weren't cameras on him then, but because he began to become legitimately frightened by the notion of getting further into trouble. Trouble he began to recognize as real, since the cops, in their idiocy, did not appear to be letting up. Though Andrew is a famous practical joker, one of his friends was able to tell the difference between Andrew's practical joke tapes and this one just by Andrew's genuinely frightful screams while appearing threatened by the police. This is a shameful allegation on the part of the Department of Law Enforcement, but making it even more shameful was their complete defense of the officers whose conduct they were investigating. These state officers are police too, and obviously want to protect their own kind at any cost, while, to thoughtful people, only worsened the deserved reputation of police, people given so much authority with so little outside oversight that they fill the roles of tyrants. The groundbreaking study conducted by Philip G. Zimbardo in 1971 strongly suggests that when humans are given roles of overwhelming authority, that they tend to take advantage of them. This isn't to say that some cops don't seek out the job just in order to satisfy their own ego. Yet, whatever an officer's motives for having sought out their career, There ought to be much stricter outside oversight of their conduct, so that those more or less apt to take advantage of their position are discouraged from doing so. The cops who arrested Andrew Meyer most assuredly didn't understand the gravity of Meyer's questions and the importance of the potential discussion with Kerry. Instead, they acted on feeling threatened by Meyer's dismissal of the request for him to stop asking his questions, and even more threatened by his in-your-face but justified defiance of their authority to remove him. They were not justified whatsoever in interfering with the Meyer-Kerry interaction. The very most they should have done was talk with Meyer after his questions were answered to discuss the ramifications of his probable violations of school policies. Deciding to escort Meyer from the room was not just a mistake because of his obviously impassioned state, but because they were disrupting the event. Having made this mistake, though, once Meyer, to his honor, resisted, to match his resistance with a display of their imagined power only further disrupted the event to a degree of ridiculousness. If they had any brains, they would have apologized at that point, not continued to make things worse. Before being tasered, Andrew pled to be able to leave without being arrested. The cops, of course, claimed it was too late for them. At this point, they had already murdered the event. Now they just had to realize this, not make themselves look like worse assholes, and do the right thing. Of course, they didn't. Andrew's statement of apology and pardon of the officer's actions was transparently an attempt to mend his reputation with the school, police, and public, well, with those stupid enough to find only him to blame. Andrew, of all people, knows the real situation. The State Department's report may have fooled some into thinking the police were justified, but it didn't fool anyone who can see, research, and think. As usual, the police are the losers on this one, despite their power. For those who are in power, to not only tremendously abuse their authority, but also go extra lengths to reverse the blame onto some impassioned intellectual who probably threatens them, is unimaginably shameful and supremely unimaginably unacceptable. In an unjust world, in an unjust country, never be ashamed of standing up for justice, in whatever small way you can. This deserves to be responded to with protest. This is my protest.